My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an outstanding program for you tonight, and we have 4 exemplary people that we'd like to introduce you to. To my immediate left is Ms. Jeanette Keys, CEO Keys Overby and Associates, and to her left is Marcus McAllister, National Community Coordinator for Care Violence. And to his left is Mr. Bernard Carpenter, an evangelist in Lake County. And our anchor person is Marcella Harden. She's a television host for Untitled TV, and she's a consultant among many other positions that she holds. So these are people that you should know. Greetings, folks.
Greetings.
We're very happy that you've taken time for your busy schedule to be with us on Community Forum. You know, Lake County is approximately 750,000 people, but we have approximately 100,000 Comcast viewers. But those that do not have Comcast, you can go online at drbrooks.tv. That's drbrooks.tv, and you could watch the program all over the world. So that means that when we complete the show tonight and when it's aired, if you're not known all over the world, you will be known after tonight. We're going to start off by talking with Jeanette Keys, and she's got a very impressive bio, so we'd like to share it with you. She has an MA and an EDD, and she's a graduate of North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina. She has a master's in health administration, Webster University, and is currently pursuing a doctorate in education at Walden University. Ms. Keys has over 25 years in healthcare, 15 years in human resources, 20 years in public health regulatory compliance, 5 years with Head Start, and 17 years as an adjunct professor with College of Lake County. She is the CEO of Keys Overby and Associates, a certified public speaker via Toastmaster, a 9-year cancer survivor, very active in her church and community, and believes knowledge is power. She believes and knows God has each of us on this earth for a purpose. She believes her purpose is to uplift, educate, inform, and empower others to be the very best they can be. Guess we're going to let you introduce yourselves when we get around to you, but I just had to start off with the information concerning Ms. Keys. Ms. Keys, tonight we're going to be talking about racism and how to combat it. But first of all, I'd like for you to tell us how did you get into the field that you're in?
Well, good evening. I actually have, my undergraduate is in biological sciences. I've worked in healthcare, so that covers that. I also, as was alluded to, I am a professor at College of Lake County for over 17 years, and that's the health field as well. And I do a lot as far as education. I do a lot in the community as far as educating others for no charge, because I feel, as he alluded to, that we do learn by educating others. So just glad to be here today, to be part of this forum.
Fantastic. Marcus, we're going to give you the same opportunity that I gave Ms. Keys. Tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Well, my name is Marcus McAllister, and I'm glad to be here. I have a PhD and master's degree in the School of Hard Knocks.
All right.
And what I mean by that, I spent a lot of my childhood and time in the streets. Ultimately, it landed me 10 years incarceration.
Wow.
When I was a youngster, so I spent most of my young years incarcerated. But today, the way God works, He can take something that looks like it's supposed to be for the bad and turn it into good. So today, I serve in the capacity, I'm a national community coordinator for organization called Cure Violence. And we are the #1 violence prevention NGO in the world. We have 60 sites throughout the country. I've been fortunate and blessed enough to travel to quite a bit of them. I've been to South Africa, I've been to Palestine. I just got back from Trinidad. I'm constantly going to New York, Baltimore. And basically what I do is I use my experience, my past, the things that I came out of to kind of influence and help somebody to get over what they're going through. But primarily my focus is to stop the violence in different cities. So I train individuals all over the United States. I'm hardly ever in town, but I'm glad to be in town today to be on your show.
Fantastic. I know your family very well. I guess, was that your Edward
Yes, Edward was my grandfather.
Oh,
yes.
grandfather. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's, you come from good stock.
Yes, sir. Good praying stock.
Okay, right.
Yes, indeed.
Well, Bernard Carpenter, you're from good stock also. Lillian Carpenter is known all over Lake County.
The diva.
With her voice. But I'm going to give you the same opportunity to tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal professional background.
Okay, good evening, first of all. I'm glad to be here. I am Evangelist Bernard Carpenter, which is actually an ordained pastor. I'm the founder of the ministries called Something Different Ministries. I am a motivational speaker. I am now residing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I'm back and forth, as Marcus is, to and from Lake County. We teach and we preach for the young and the youth around the nations now. Right now we're really dealing with youth doing car thefts and stealing cars and doing things of that nature and being killed at 14 years old and going to jail at 13 for trying to drive a car and can't even drive a car. So basically our motive and our motivation is to try to reach the children before they have an opportunity to go to jail. And we're trying to catch those children before they get in that position.
Fantastic. We're going to learn more about that later, but we're going to give Marcella Harden, also well known in Lake County, an opportunity that I've given the others. Marcella, tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal professional background.
Well, I'm a person who has so many experiences that I've just put them all together into one pot.
Okay.
And I think of myself now as a woman with a purpose.
Okay.
A woman with a purpose. I think so many times we go through a long period of life without knowing why we're here or what we're going to do. And at some point, I don't know if it's over, you turn over 50, and then, or what age it comes at, that we decide that we need to just take our group of experiences and save the children. See, that's my passion now, is to save children and to train them how to cook. Things that they used to happen in the high schools many years ago that are now defunct. They just died, banned. I mean, now I just want to support and raise funds and do all these other things for children. I think, as yourself, Dr. Brooks, that we have television, the greatest medium in the world. Everybody has 1 or 2 TVs, and you and I have the opportunity to train a multitude of people or provide them with information. So I think I'm on an information highway here. That's my, you can call all these other things jazz singer. Those are just all fun things. But I'm the purpose person now.
Fantastic. That's outstanding. I think the panel would agree that all of us here with a purpose-driven life, right?
Yes.
We all have a purpose. We're not just here just to be here. You know?
Right.
God has a plan for each one of us.
Amen.
Tonight we're going to be talking about racism, which is, you can't turn on TV without hearing about racism. As a matter of fact, it has elevated up to the candidates for the President of the United States, right? But let's first of all define it. I want each one of you to tell our listening audience, what is racism? We might as well start with you, Jeanette.
In my opinion, racism is discrimination, prejudice, because one race feels superior to another.
Okay.
That would probably be my definition for the most part. But I just want to make a note. I think the things that we're seeing are related to institutional racism.
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to come back and talk about that a little bit later
Okay.
on.
Okay. Marcus, your definition of racism.
You know, pretty much I concur with she said. I will say that, you know, as a kid, when we think of racism, blatantly we just think of it as somebody doesn't like me because of the color of my skin, or I don't like you because of the color of your skin.
Okay.
But it's truly a form of discrimination, no matter who you're applying that racism to, whether black, white, Hispanic. So I think that sums it up. It's discrimination from what you are and your color of your skin and whatnot. You know.
Before we go to Bernard, you want to elaborate on that a little bit. Why is there discrimination because of your color? You know, in other words, you didn't have anything to do with the color of your skin, like other people didn't have anything to do with the color of their skin. You know, as a matter of fact, among the African Americans, is we could talk about that later. Different colors, different hues. You know what I mean? But why is there discrimination?
Well, you know, for me, it's something that's been going on many, many years before I even was on this earth. So it's a hard answer for me to say why. But if I just guess, I would say it's something that has been a behavior that has been adapted for many, many years from however it first started many, many years ago when someone decided to discriminate against somebody from their color. So I look at even a lot of people today that might be racist and stuff. I think it's inherited far as just what they've been around, learned behavior, you know, and so learned behavior sometimes trickle down through families and you just, before you know it, it becomes a norm. And it's kind of like how we look at violence being learned. So racism is something that it's inherited from generations and generations of people seeing it and just becoming desensitized about it.
Well, we're getting deeper and deeper as we go along. Bernard, it's your turn now. What is your definition of racism?
Kind of piggyback on what Marcus said. I look at it as too a lack of education, because we tend to get in a position where, as being black nor white nor Mexican, whatever you have to be, you get stuck in a position where if you don't continue to get your education, then you fall into a category as of, I didn't finish high school, I didn't finish this. Like my mom, then when they were growing up, she's 90 years old now, there was an education, so they weren't able to read. You couldn't learn how to read back then at that time, so it was kind of like holding you down to say, no, you'll be in trouble if you learn how to read. And I think it kind of stuck with Afro-Americans a lot, because it became a part of their lives where the education thing really didn't take place unless you had an ancestor or somebody who went in that line of to come on and say, hey, you can do this. So I think racism for me would go in the line of factor of not just the color, it would also go in the generations of what are you teaching that child? Because if a child feels as though he's distant and can't read a book or can't do his math, now he becomes down in a pattern, because nowadays we have, being in the inner cities, you see just as much as white folks in poverty as you do Afro-Americans. Because what happens is that they don't have that education-wise. So, and I say that because we have as many as Caucasian guys now that are out there stealing cars and doing stuff, trying to fit in as well, because their lack of education and the sense to go higher in life has stopped them.
So it's not just because of the color of your skin, then, what you're saying. It's other races.
Because what happened is now is that if you look in the industries, like if you got the music medias and all that's going on, if you're watching TV, you're seeing a lot of Caucasians as well as Afro-Americans join together, because it's a power thing about the money. So they're not concerned about your color anymore. You know what I mean? It's just where your education is. Can you help me get to the next point? Can you help me get a dot like Marcus now? They're not just a black old community. They have all color of nationalities in their system to make it work. So I think it goes to a part where it comes to the fact of what can you do? How well do you want to let your mind get to the next level to stop all the racism? Because it's not like it used to be. I mean, you know, as far as the violence going, I'm in Milwaukee where it's bad, but we had a march and we had just as many as Caucasians out on the hood on the south side as we did Afro-Americans.
Oh, Marcella, you're the anchor person, so you're going to have to bring it on home.
I'm going to have to drag it in. Well, you
your
know,
definition of racism.
I guess I could agree with everybody.
Okay.
But the issue for me is I didn't really see it as a child. You know, I was growing up. I mean, what do we know? We didn't really have the media, so we didn't see a lot of what was happening. But as I became a teen and a young mother, I saw it by the violence that was taking place during King's March. This is when I became more aware of racism. And I've always just put it in the category of color. But today, I agree with the money. It's a race about money. Who controls the money? We still don't control the money. So for me, racism is an issue of lack of education, juvenile justice system. Matter of fact, I was watching a program called Kids in Juvenile, how we get from young to old within a school prison system.
Okay.
And that's racism.
Yeah.
That is, it is in its boldest look. If we look at our school systems, right now how the kids are set up, the schools don't even look like schools, whatever a school's supposed to look like. They look like an institutional facility.
Who benefits from racism?
Nobody really.
Well, I don't think anyone really benefits from it. It's more of a harm than anything else. But I wanted to tag along with what she alluded to before. When we think of racism, and I just want to use an example, there's individual racism and there's institutional racism.
Okay.
An example of individual racism would be the man going into the church in Birmingham, Alabama, and killing those 5 girls. But in the same year that those girls were killed, there were about 500 children, babies that died in that same city because of poverty, a lack of health care. So that's institutional. And I've learned that institutional racism is very subtle. It's not as overt because people sort of sweep it under the rug. So that's the thing that we're seeing a lot now as far as the shootings and all of those things. That's institutional. Okay, but I think the first thing is that we have to identify, you know, individual versus institution, and then that's one of the ways to solve the problem.
Yes.
Right.
You remember Dred Scott back in, what, 1857?
I don't. 1857? I've heard, but
Okay, I have something for you here. You know, being that teacher background, hand out exhibits, you know, so forth. So I'm gonna hand out exhibits to you here. This is a Dred Scott, and I do this because of let's see, I didn't bring one for myself. I just want to read one paragraph, then I pass this on. Now here's a case here. Chief Justice, the first paragraph, Roger B. Taney. He has been dead for many years, right? But on May 19, at the United States Supreme Court, his spirit was living. He said that he told a slave seeking freedom, this is Dred Scott, that blacks have no rights which white man is to respect. That's pretty heavy. So that's racism. You know, black Americans and the person said, I for one, are as proud of people as any, but sadly racism has convinced some that they cannot compete. You know?
Everybody needs a worker. Slavery is a form of keeping you working.
So actually, what is here is capitalism or what? You want to keep blacks have no rights to white to respect.
And you know what? Sometimes we pick up that ball and run with it. We act like we have no respect.
Wait a minute. I got another exhibit.
Okay.
Now, the reason for that is Willie Lynch.
Yeah, okay.
You heard of the Willie Lynch syndrome?
Oh, sure.
All right, Willie Lynch, a slave owner, went to his went to the slave owner, told them that on the banks of the James River, you know, he read a letter. He said, if you use these procedures on your slaves, first of all, he couldn't. The slave owner would beat the blacks, you know, kill them, beat them. He wondered why the blacks wouldn't work. But see, blacks were not used to. They were sons and daughters of kings and queens in Africa, and they weren't used to being beat in this situation. Beat. So he said, don't beat them. He said, if you use this procedure on them for 1 year intensively, you will have them under control perpetually. Now that was in 1712. You can pass this up. 1712, and this is 2016?
2016.
And it's working. And he said for hundreds of years it will work. Now, why did he want to keep his slaves under control?
Because he had workers.
Free labor.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
power.
if you didn't
It's
know
a power
nothing
struggle.
else, yeah.
There was
You
a
know, it's
separation of
power
power.
struggle. Yeah.
Okay, now
that's
power
what-
comes into it now.
Right. His whole concept was actually, I think he was the one too that almost like the Jim Crow thing, you know, separating the light skins from the in
yeah,
the
that's
house
part of it.
and the darks in the field. So what you're doing is, here's a people, African American people, we're separating them. So if you separate them, they don't communicate, they don't talk to each other, and they have no power. So as someone alluded to before, that's historical. This all goes back to slave mentality,
Okay,
you know, where we
okay.
have no power.
Yeah.
What we have to do is just educate people, as you said before, about the fact that we do have rights, we do need to be respected because we are Americans and citizens like all others. So he was basically separating the group itself.
Yeah, I just want to, and one of the things I'd say about this time and era, just from my readings and study and stuff, one thing that really kind of discourages me about what was going on back then now is the fact that how to strengthen their racism, their slavery tactics, they used the Bible. I mean, they literally thought that they were going to use that to, and they did it, and they used it to scare and say this is it, to convince everyone else that this is right, that this is what we need to do. So that wouldn't fly today. I mean, you know, you may do it in a little corner somewhere, but back then it was openly that they were saying, no, this is what it is, and this is why we can be like this towards you, because the Bible says we can be like that. A total lie. You know?
And to piggyback on what he's saying about that Bible thing is that if we go back to what I said earlier about we weren't reading back then.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So they had the power to read that and kind of tell you what it is. And if you're looking at it, it's just like being a pastor now. You know, I get into the Bible more than I ever did. And, you know, people can tell you anything and say, it's in the Bible. Read Psalm 6, 7. You know, and when you read that one scripture, if you don't go 4 scriptures up and then come 4 scriptures down and read it, then it has you to the point where you look at that one scripture and say, oh, wow, they're right. You know what I mean? So you have to, like Marcus said, these are numbers. So today, as he said, it won't work because, again, we fall back into the education part of it. Everybody in here has had some kind of educational background to stop the racism in our mind. And if you don't know better, then you'll fall into that process.
And I think part of that education, too, even he was talking about not so much pitching the light skin against the dark. He was telling us to the old people, disrespect the old people. We are smart enough to know, African Americans and all other races are smart enough to know that we don't disrespect our elders.
That's right.
But a big part of it is education. We've been able to read and know how to survive and what is right and what's not right, as far whether it's voting. We have voters' rights, where before, you know, we all know that even there were times when African Americans had to pay a poll tax, so to speak, to vote. You know, or even Texas was the last state to get freedom because they were not informed. So a big part of what's going on now is education, but I do believe we need to do more of that to disseminate or to dispel some of the things that are going on.
And it goes back to if they were real serious about reading and writing, because it was illegal to even teach a slave how to read and write. You know, they would be dealt with. So they were real serious about this thing. But you speak about evangelism and the Bible and so forth, but were we made from the same dust?
Oh yeah. Everybody comes from the same dust. I'm a firm believer that no matter what your race is, it's who you believe in and what you believe in. And if you read the Word of God and you get into the Word, then it gives you it gives you all that you need to know that every man is made the same color. I mean, not the same color, but in the same blood. So we're one in the same blood. So the colors and the nationalities are just a mere technicality of, well, he doesn't want everybody to be walking around and looking the same. Because now I can go to jail for Marcus because we look just alike. So he had to make a difference in the world, but we come from the same blood.
You know, we try to intelligently reason this thing out, you know, but there's no real reason for racism. Since in the sight of God, we're the same. We're made from the same dust, and one man, one woman, and but I guess we have.
Somebody has to have power.
Right.
Involves by
Somebody has to have power.
That's the struggle. That's the struggle.
And you say no one gains from it. Now we know that. We know that's the smart, logical answer. But to them, to the oppressor, he feels like he's gaining something. I bet you he wouldn't say.
Right.
He'd say, "Yeah, I'm
Right.
gaining respect. I'm gaining. I'm over these people, and I'm gaining that I'm superior." So, but we know that's a mental warp in his head because you're really not gaining anything. But they feel that they are, and that's not the case.
You don't think so? I think I think people are winning because our kids are not educated again. It seems like we've made a circle. There was no education, then we fought to get them an education, and now they're not even going to school. So in a way, they are winning. Racism is winning because a part of it is telling you that you can't. You can't read. And you can only educate people if they can understand. So we're in a hard space.
And I think another.
Oh, go ahead.
I think another thing is when we reflect back to the power, because on lockups, just like in Milwaukee, there's situations, there's schools. There's one called Lincoln Hills, which is a juvenile detention center. Well, they have certain things where if a child gets locked up and perhaps they go into what they call the hole or, you know, because they violated, and there's no education going on then. You see what I'm saying? So what they do is they lock these kids up as juveniles and stuff, and they don't take any books and throw the book in the room and say, here, read this or we're going to give you this test. They might open the little cubby hole and give them something to eat, but now maybe 20, 30 days, they're locked up in this hole with no education going on in their mind. So all they do is when they come up out of there is to come back out like, hey, I'm free, da-da-da-da-da. But you're not teaching them anything to keep them educated. So that's what we talk about, where they have that power of racism. That's racism, and no matter what nationality you are. Because now you got a child that's in there 15 and 16 years old, and they've been locked in a hole for 60 or 70 days. Now when they come out, they'd have missed all that school knowledge.
And I think that goes back to when you think about racism and the institutional piece, it's about disparities. You know, let's think about, I used to be a lead inspector for the Lake County Health Department, Flint, Michigan.
Okay.
Okay. There were individuals that knew about the water, and that existed for a long time. Now, if that had been in another community, that would not have existed. That's because they were poor people. So it has to do with wealth, income, health care. I've gone to the cancer treatment center where a lady's sitting in a bed adjacent to me. I have insurance, good insurance. And I said to her, African American, ma'am, you sound like you're really bad. Did you just get here? No, honey, I haven't been here for a year and a half because I didn't have the health care. So it's money, wealth, employment. Did we not hear on the TV the other day when a lady went and applied for a job
At the Marcus
and
Theater
had dreads,
and they didn't.
and it's like not being informed. It said help wanted, but it didn't say no dreads. So it's a lot of things. It's the wealth, the income, employment, housing, health care. It's just so many things. And our country is such that if you have the money, you don't spend time in jail. We know the statistics about African American males versus white males. So money is a big piece of this. We know that. And that deals with all those other things we're talking about, housing and all those other things. So if you have a little money, some of the racism you don't have to deal with. But I do think being a Southern person, I do think a lot of it is innate. I have a child that has a white godmom. And I think if you've been raised in an area or home where there's racism, it's within you. You know, I don't look at a white man and say he's racist because he's white. Right. But I think also what each one of us have to do is to learn the difference between stereotyping and being biased. Because sometimes I hear kids in school say, all policemen are racist. And I say, stop. Right. Do you know the difference between stereotyping and bias? We're all biased, you know, so I think education is a real big piece of that. So.
And as long as we stay uneducated, we will always be slaves.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, but the institutional piece is, like you said, is very strong.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you an example that was a prime example of that. And there's a lot of them in this country. But you think about it, African-American men were getting 100 times more incarceration time for having cooked up. Let's say, let me give you an example, and even though this is illegal stuff, but let's put it real, 1 ounce of cocaine, 28 grams, get you so much time because it's cooked up and whatnot. White boy over here can get caught with 4 kilos and get, which can make 50 of those little balls, right? Or more than that, or, you know, but his time is less than, well, who's making crack? Now, I'm not making no excuses for wrongdoing. I'm just saying there's a prime example of something that is set up when you think about money and for individuals. I'm all for, you know, people need to do right, and if you're wrong, but some of these things are set up, and that's why it goes back to education. We need to know you're in a situation where you're already set up to fail, so you have to be aware of these things. You can't go into things like, well, they can't do that. No, they've been doing that, and they're going to continue to do it unless you educate yourself, and you can't just try to push against the grain. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be aware of what's going on so you don't get caught up in that cycle, because there's stuff going on out there that's blatant. It's not going to change. You can fall in that box if you want, because you'll say they're not supposed to do it. It's almost like driving a car. I always tell my wife, when I'm driving a car, I'll drive defensively. I'm not going to say, well, they know they're not supposed to run that red light. And, you know, no, I'm going to keep going because they got to slow down. If I even see it look like they're going, I'm slowing down. I don't want to have a mind where I think that, you know, that's just given to me. And
you know what, just to piggyback with what he just said about, you know, one having a certain amount and the other having another, there's a research that's been done. A student did a research on a study about African Americans not having the opportunity to be on juries for the criminal justice system. I've served as a juror many times, but I never get to that point of serving on a jury. So that's a way of stopping. You see what I'm saying? So there are roadblocks, you know, that have been put in place. We didn't do that. It was done by, again, the institution. So, you know, we just have to somehow educate people and I guess be proactive in groups and forums like this and get the word out that, you know, this is being done, and then maybe someone will hear us and we can make some changes.
Well, what you're saying is that racism is such a monster that we just cannot get rid of it, right?
You can't focus on it because you can't, it's so, like you said, it's so huge. You can't focus on it. The focus is changing the kids, changing our thought patterns, doing more for Black History Month. You know, we have lost our history. As long as you don't have your history, and we're not doing a good job, as I call it, parents. I think we're the parents of this century. And we're not doing well. I mean, our TVs. I mean, everybody's cussing on TV now, and you can call each other out of your name. You can do anything, and we have allowed these things to happen. We have allowed it by not stopping it.
I don't want to go back to your question. I don't want us to say that we can't get rid of it. I think we can do things to minimize it. We can look at the things that have happened in Chicago. The mayor, all of a sudden, we're going to have 500 new police. You know, and everybody has on a body cam now. You know, so there's some things that are in place now that were never in place because people started marching Black Lives Matter. Yes, we know all lives matter, but a lot of blacks are being killed. So I think as long as we do things like join local, I belong to an organization where I register people to vote. You know, I've had some opposition from my own race. No, I'm not going to vote. Or one Hispanic lady told me the other day, her teacher told her that your vote doesn't count. So we have to educate people and let them know. But I think we need to get out. We need to learn more about the cultures of others. I have some Hispanic friends that I go to some of their functions, and I'm learning more about them and inviting them to ours. So I think just networking and continuing to get the word out, because this is not something we need to lay down for, because it's not getting any better. It's more overt now, and I do believe because we have these iPhones, these camera phones, and we didn't have them back in the day. And I don't think there are more killings going on than were going back in the day. Now we just know about what's going on in Mississippi and all those other places because people can actually tape those. So,
well, I think that more awareness now is what's going on in the communities, because we're stuck in a syndrome of, especially Afro Americans. I mean, we have a tendency to quit. and just give up. I mean, it's easy for the average children now, kids, to get in and say, I tried this, forget it, I'm going back to slinging. I can't make it, I can't get my education right, so I'm going back to selling drugs. You know, I was just talking to a party last week where the child just got out. He did like 3 years in, and he just got caught with some heroin in his pocket the other day walking down the street. So we're kind of immune to the fact of that fast money instead of being able to go get an education and wait. You know, just like with me, I'm 55 now. I'm just now getting it after 50. You know, so you have to crawl and keep coming and keep fighting and don't turn around and don't stop. But I think for the average kids nowadays, they get the lack of I quit, and like you're saying, the parents ain't helping because half of the parents got them selling drugs or they selling drugs to their parents and things of that nature. So we're kind of caught in that syndrome, and it makes it bad for the community to try to for. It's easy to back out and say, no, I ain't gonna do it. It's easy to say I ain't going to vote.
What is the impact you feel of electing President Barack Obama, President of the United States of America?
Oh, there's a tremendous impact. There's no way you could not, especially to African Americans in this country. I mean, that would have been one thing that mostly every African American thought, there's no way we'll never have a black president. This is a racist country. I mean, you know, people. So just the fact that he got in there, whether you're somebody that believes in him, whether you think he was a puppet or whatever the case. Perception and to be able to see something is so big, and that's why with the police stuff that's going on, it's not so much that people are upset about the people getting killed. We are upset about that. What we're upset about is no consequences are coming to it. We're used to things happen. It's not like things have not been happening like you said, but now they're being caught, and so everyone's focused on the consequences. Like that's what kids are saying. So if people are like, if there's not going to be any consequences, why should I not be racist? This is how kids in the inner hit city is like, why should I not be racist towards police or anybody else? Because they can do anything and they're not going to get and they're not going to be held accountable for it. So I use that example along. What I'm saying is that when you see Barack Obama in the White House as a black man, I mean, it has to do some good to somebody's thought. Maybe that would have been, you might have had somebody, their only thought of racism is they think that there'll never be a black president. Now, I'm just using that example. So we've eliminated that one right there. It's one step at a time, but that was a big one for him to be in the White House, in my opinion.
Well, Rodney King and O.J. Simpson. Now, the situation with Rodney King was one thing, but with O.J. Simpson, what the people, I guess, across the country was saying, I mean, they believe that he did it, you know what I mean? But they were demonstrating and rejoicing is because they figure justice was finally coming to pass now.
Our karma finally came about. That's what it was.
That's exactly
Karma
right.
came in. Everybody
That's
felt
right.
that.
That's exactly
Okay,
right.
yeah, he might have did it. But we finally beat one too. Like all the countless ones that they beat and never got held accountable and stuff. You know, but so that's kind of how I looked at that.
Is that not a part of our history, though? So being beaten and hung and hoses, dogs. I mean, it's not new.
Okay.
It's not new. It's just that you can see it, but they were looking then.
Right.
I just wanted to piggyback about Obama, President Obama being elected. And the great thing about it, if you look at some of the statistics, he was not elected just by African Americans. He was elected by what he stood for. And you can look at the programs. I worked at Head Start, and Head Start hadn't had a raise, staff hadn't had raises in 5 to 6 years. He had worked in Chicago with poverty programs. What are you going to do when you get in office? You're going to help those programs you recognize. So there were white females that voted for him in great numbers, and he's for the disadvantaged. He's not just for African Americans, you know, those that can't help themselves. So I think it was the people speaking. It wasn't just African Americans speaking. It was the people saying, we are where we are today, and this is the man we want because he's for all people. And he has proven that. He has proven that, and I truly believe if he could run another term, he would win.
And you know, I'll go on with that too as well to say that I'm one that, you know, where we're at in our lives now with the power of God, to know that I mean, when it comes to voting and everything else, I said God has the last decision, and I feel as though he was put in that office as well as we have the voters and everything else, but to show as racism and everything else, to say that, okay, like Marcus said, we do have an Afro-American, in which in my opinion right now, I still see a Hispanic coming up in the years to come to be a president. You know what I mean? Because he's showing each nationality that we can do this, but it still all goes down to the education. How well do you want it? How bad do you want it? Because if you look in society now, we go to a fact where like the Spanish people have came in and they're getting offices, and black people are getting mad. How do they come over here and get that office? Well, they're educating themselves. And I believe that, you know, with that being said, as far as the office gets put into, who goes with the education? How many people do you have on board with you that are educated to make you advance?
Everyone has mentioned education, but it appears that the educated people here in the country is supporting Hillary, I guess, and the uneducated, the less, I should say the less, not uneducated, the less educated are supporting Trump, right?
Yeah.
So education is playing a
Well,
great
at least that's what they tell us. I mean, we that's what you see, you know, if you listen to the news. But you know, I don't believe everything I see on CNN and Fox. You know, so you know, people play with numbers and this and that in that case. So. You know, I'd have to know, you know, get some facts behind that before I just run with it. You know, yeah, exactly, because we don't know for sure sometimes what's being given to us.
No, we just pray. We know how to
We
pray.
just pray. That's right. We just pray. That's God. That's all we can do.
That's right, because like, it's strange when they say, oh, we did a survey.
Yeah.
Now, at one time you could have did a survey, you could have went down the telephone book.
Right.
You can't do that now. Everybody has a cell phone. There is no, quote, cell phone book. So who are they surveying?
Exactly.
Who, how do you get these 100,000 people said, how?
Right.
How do, that's why I agree with what you said. Where does information come from?
Everybody has a different
Well,
opinion.
what about your opinion about turning segregation into integration? Do you think that will resolve the problem?
Segregation.
Because we talk about integration, and a lot of people say integration really hurt us.
Yes, it did.
Okay, and you know why? Most African American teachers lost their jobs and this type of thing. You know, but can we get rid of, you know? But what about segregation over integration? Which one did you think we were helped by this integration?
I think integration came about because they wanted the money back. They would pay you in slavery. They would pay you or past slavery. You were getting a salary, but you went to took your salary and went home because you had all of the necessary things in your own community. You couldn't eat in the restaurant, so somebody was cooking. You couldn't almost buy groceries, so they were farming. But they wanted the money back.
I think there were some advantages from integration. I can reflect back when I was in 7th grade, and I can remember schools being integrated. And I can remember things like the books changed. We had better books, better desks to sit in. So some of the resources were better. But going back to what you alluded to before, I'm not sure that has continued. I had a friend a couple years ago at the WAUKEGAN High School. Her daughter brought home a social studies book, and the dad realized it was the same textbook, he's 40 years old, that he had. So they became vocal, and long story short, the governor put them on a task force. If we go, Warren, I had a granddaughter at Warren, I go to WAUKEGAN. There's a difference, there's some disparities still. But I think for the most part, integration did help. We're getting better resources for the most part. But again, I think even where we have areas where predominantly black kids or Hispanic kids, we need to speak up about those resources that are not what they should be compared to some of the other schools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. But our history still isn't there.
No.
Even though they gave us better desks and opened it, they didn't put our history in there. So we learned about them. Columbus, our history is still missing. So did they really help us?
I even seen in the history book recently, someone posted on one of the social networks and took a picture of it where in some school, the history book, it basically called the slaves workers. They didn't even call them slaves. It called them workers. So, I mean,
Change the terminology.
Yeah, they changed the terminology and put them in the map and said these were the workers that were brought over from Africa. No, they weren't. I mean, you know, there's more to it than just that.
One thing I just wanted to mention here, we talk about racism, what it is, and what to do about it. But do we know what racism is? Okay. blacks and whites should learn to live and work together. Is that a racist statement?
No, it's an accurate statement. It's blacks and whites and Latinos and all groups should learn to work together. You know, I think that's someone, and there's some other pieces to that, I'm sure. Rodney King, didn't he say something like that? Yeah. We need to get along?
Yeah.
Why can't we get along?
Why can't we get along?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's, I think it's just something that needs to be a fact. I don't look at that as a racist statement.
Right, yeah.
Okay, well, you know, I guess each one of you will have to take a turn on it, because the reason it's a racist statement is because of you using race. Black is a race and white's a race.
Oh, okay.
You see? So that's the reason it's a racist statement.
Oh, okay.
You shouldn't.
So we're going to a trick question.
You see me?
He said he was a teacher.
Yeah. Asian students seem to excel in mathematics.
Yeah.
You see, racist statement. You know,
Or stereotypical.
Right.
see if I can get one. Universities should try to recruit more black students. So you're still talking about race again, to black. But it's so that's the type of thing we're gonna try to get away from, you know, because we still promoting racism, you know. Yeah. Marcus, tell us about. We had a little time left here about the work that you're doing.
Wow,
I think you people should know.
Well, it's I appreciate that. Yes, so I've been with Cure Violence for about 12 years now, and I didn't know that it was going to expand the way it did. When I first started working in WAUKEGAN, North Chicago, as a violence interrupter, trying to make our neighborhood safer, and our job is to try to get to Group A and Group B and stop them from the retaliations. And we use people who have credible backgrounds, like myself. I'm touting my own credibility, where I can get in where a regular social worker, where a regular probation officer, police, or any of them, they can't get in like me and my staff, what we can do. We have the ability to find out more quicker and deal with it on a way that can stop the spread. See, we look at violence as a disease. So I consider myself a public health worker. You know, I'm not like a social worker of violence. I'm a public health worker. We consider ourselves in the health field, and we look at violence as a disease. We want the world to look at it as a disease and know that you have to treat it with a disease. You're not going to have a doctor go out there and try to handle certain crimes, and you don't need the police to deal with a virus that we can handle, meaning, you know, dealing with it, and that's what I do. I train individuals how to be an antidote, for lack of a better word, and they go out there, Dr. Brooks, and they become what we call peacemakers, and they work, and I've been fortunate. Like I said, I've been to Mandela's prison in South Africa. I've been to Jesus' tomb. I'm saying this humbly, I'm not bragging, but I want the people to know how God has blessed me, and I just travel, and I'm going to Morocco soon, and it's just all about in the name of peace. And I never thought that I would become an ambassador for peace. You know, I love my community. I'm in Lake County, and I'm saying this humbly, but I've been fortunate, and I'm glad you give me this opportunity, because I want people in this neighborhood to know what I've been doing, and I would like to share more of it with schools and colleges, and I do trainings, and I have all type of curriculums that I can help when it comes to dealing with inner city violence and how we approach it.
Well, you can thank Bernard Carpenter.
Yes.
He told me about what you were doing,
Thank
and
you.
I thought that Lake County should know.
I appreciate that, and I thank you, buddy.
Positive things that have been done.
Yes, sir.
Jeanette Keys, you spoke about disparities in health, and you worked many years in the health department, too. So you want to talk about some disparities people may not be aware of, you know.
Well, definitely. I actually worked in as Lake County Health Inspector, first African American. And I want to say this too, is that we keep talking about education. I think when we share with the youth, the young people, what we've gone through, and like we just talked about, and that means sharing. If you've been discriminated, you can talk to them one-on-one, and they can look at you and see, well, you survived. I have been on several occasions. As I said before, I'm from North Carolina, and I lived south many years, not even knowing what racism was. People think if you were raised in the South, you know what it is. I come to I got a job offer in 1978 as a social worker, and I lived in Mundelein. And I was the only African American that lived there. And I didn't understand until later the CEO got the apartment for me, but I found out they would not have rented to me. So there was a housing discrimination there if I had gone that route. I've had instances where I worked as a health inspector in the 80s and went out to Fox Lake and showed them ID that I was a health inspector, and I've been told I didn't know they had colored folks to do that. And instead of going the negative route, I continued with the inspection, but I took the time to educate.
Wow.
We're not called colored. All you have to have is a biological degree, a science degree. And saw the man some years later, and he was a salesman, and I bought some tables for my living room and gave me a discount. It's about educating and letting people know. I've worked as an HR director with the county, in an instance there, they were downsizing and had offered other people package deals because they were downsizing, and I was one of the top people. But instead, my name was marred a little bit, defamed. I was discriminated against, and there are systems in place when you are discriminated against, whether it's EEOC, Department of Human Rights, where it is illegal. It is illegal, and people need to go that route. And so I actually fought that and walked out of that place on a Friday, and on a Monday I had a job as a Head Start director, and as a result of that I have a property that the man upstairs helped me to get. I believe if you're doing the right thing, God is behind you.
That's right.
And so, but I'm still standing. That's the thing. You know, so you don't lay down, you continue doing it, and he will bless you. You walk out of one place, he'll bless you again. So I think we need to tell our kids, the young people, about that, share the stories with other people to know that, yeah, it does exist. It's not as major as we think it is, but these are the avenues you need to go to rectify it. So, and I have to applaud the NAACP. They're out there helping people. There are many other advocates out there as well. So we need to seek them out when we do have concerns.
Well, Marcella, you have a story here. You were in, you social worker, were you?
I was, yes.
Okay. Now, I'm sure you probably, I say probably.
It's the hardest job I ever had in life because it's hard to solve human problems.
Okay.
People say, if you give me some money, I can solve my own problems. But that's not what the state does. So it was a very hard job.
Okay.
But I think in terms of solutions, if our organizations don't become stronger, we're not going to be able to save the children.
Okay.
Because every group and organization right now that applies for grants, they always put something about kids in those grants. But adults distribute kids' money.
Okay. Right.
We need stronger organizations. And we've lost the Urban League. We lost them. I mean, they just disappeared. And though we know that the NAACP still exists here, ask how many people. When you been to a meeting? What's going on?
Since you mentioned NAACP, I just happen to have some information concerning NAACP. Do I have enough of that form? Okay. Okay. I have that is we do have it in name, but to make it active, I guess we have to be the ones to make it active, right?
We've got to save our own children.
Yeah.
We got to save our own children.
Absolutely.
If I from my remembrance, NAACP, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It was actually created by a white woman. Am I right about that? I mean, from my readings and stuff, and she was she was one of the ones that helped start it.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Ovington,
yeah. Well, if that explains, it's in here.
Oh,
it's in here. Ovington was her. Oh, I can't get her full name, but it is in here. She read about the riots that she's from New York, and read about the riots that were in Springfield, Illinois.
Okay. That's right.
So Springfield had its birth, it was the birth of the NAACP here, and she organized a biracial group in New York, in what is known as that was 1908, and they organized in 1909 to start what is now known as the NAACP.
Wow.
So it's we have to work together. Someone mentioned about integration. We have to.
Brother Brooks, I want to give mine right quick because you kind of missed me and went into the NAACP.
Well,
because I know he said it's only about 4 minutes left, so I see him counting his fingers down over there. But anyway, I just want to kind of elaborate right now as as we were going, like I said, I'm back and forth from here to Milwaukee.
Okay.
I am an ordained pastor now. I just want to throw out there too. I'm looking right there on television screen on November 5th, 2011, North South Sheridan Road in Zion, Illinois. I'm going to do my first ministry at Elder Broom's Church at 6 o'clock p.m. That's November 5th. But and I appreciate everybody that can come out. But back to what I was saying, being shot in the head twice, going through some things in life, being out there on crack cocaine. I've been homeless. I've been in a car. I've been in alleyways. I've been shot at again. I've had razors put to my throat and things of that nature. And I still kept going back and forth within the city limits of you wanted another one, you wanted another one. So that's why I have what we call now is Something Different Ministries, because what Something Different Ministries presents is just like what Marcus said, we can go places where everybody else can't go. And I can go pull somebody out of the room with the crack pipes and things of that nature and try to help them. So that's why we call it Something Different Ministries, and we're just trying to make a difference in this society.
Thank you. We're going to do another show and have, it sounds like a separate show that we're going to get you on. I just want two quick things. The North Shore Cemetery, you speak about discrimination. It speaks in here that in the warranty deed that only dead bodies of white beings to be buried there. Okay, and here's the copy of the warranty. Only white dead bodies could be buried. No, it's in the second paragraph there.
Is that
No, it's not in now. NAACP fought the case and won it. You know.
Okay.
And also, I just want to give you the. We've had black popes. We had 3 black popes. We had saints and so forth. And see, you speak about education.
Right.
And see, we're not educated. We don't know this. You know.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Think of Carter G. Woodson, for example. He was he emphasized not only just contributions, but he mentioned about education. If you check the reason that it wasn't just about contribution. The contribution just threw us off, you know, but education was what he emphasized. Thank you very much, each one of you, for taking time from your busy schedule to be with us on Community Forum. I know my ratings on Community Forum will go sky high now.
That's right.
So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host.
Ooh,